Well, good afternoon, everyone. We are here for our Thursday afternoon call, and our dear friend Andrew is at convention taking care of all those things that we need him to do so you and I don't have to worry with them. So he's going to go down there and do all that political stuff, and we're going to stay out of it and just go out and list and sell real estate. But luckily, we have the opportunity of my dear friend Brian Burds on with us, and we are going to talk today about what is the call like? How do you make the call to get that position to where you can create that next lead that you need, right? I think most of you know me, know my motto is pretty simple that lead generation will make you wealthy. Everything else is worth 10 bucks an hour. And so today we're going to talk about what do you do in that call. So when you're working leads, the key to working a lead is to work that lead into into a referral base. So I don't care where the lead comes from. I don't care if you're buying Zillow leads. I don't care if you're getting where those leads, they're coming from realtor.com, they're coming from Opcity, wherever those leads are coming from, that's fine. Once you get the lead, you got to get it into your database. You got to get it into whichever CRM you're using, and you got to make that thing be really consistent. Then the phone call now becomes about how do I create three things? Can I trust you? Are you good at your job? And do you care about me? Right. So as we move into that's a very critical piece of it, is that once a person trusts you, then they'll refer you. I'll give you an example. Uh, Yesterday, we had an appointment with a gentleman that I've known his parents and my parents moved from St. Louis back in the 60s to the Dallas Fort Worth area together. Now, they both our moms and dads and his mom and dad have all passed since then. But we've been friends. We hadn't really talked in years, but we're friends on Facebook and all that. Well, because of that relationship and because we kept that strong, and I comment on everything he does and I talk back, is I got the phone call. And the phone call was, Kent, we need to do something. So I got him into the office to sit down and go do a face to face with me, right? And now we're putting together a $600,000 deal, which is worth doing. I know it's going to make Brian happy. So, so as we do that, that's an interesting thing. But how did we do that? Well, we did it by generating the call when we knew there was an interest, and then creating dialogues that made sense for him to come to it. So Brian, my question to you would be this: is that as you're making phone calls out there to people that are interested in at least moving into the idea of listing and selling real estate, how do you determine what dialogue you're going to go down the road with them on?
Yeah, so I'll answer that in a couple things. So first off, Andrew is the serial volunteer. He literally does not know how to say no. He is now on two boards, and he is currently sitting at the New Mexico, realtor convention that is taking up his time, which we encourage because it does add value to our bottom line, and that's what brokers are for. They're there to go and figure out what and how to do things. So. But that allowed us to hijack, as you can tell with our new scenery. We've hijacked because now we are our same brand. So we've hijacked the screen. But to answer your question, the simplest format is I don't believe in 100% scripting. What I do believe in is scripted responses, right?
Correct.
Scripted responses are a method of madness that creates value for every person that we work with. And to answer Kent's conversation and question in its simplest format, I would say very simply, every conversation that you start, be their friend. Listen 70% of the time, talk 30.
Right.
Because you will be amazed by just simply listening what opportunities may be afforded to you. And remember that if they give a response of A, you need to know how to reply back to A. And when they give a response of B, they need to know how to respond to B. And that is where scripts come into play. I don't believe it should be ever a script of, hello, Kent, my name is Brian. I would like to sell you a house. Would you like to buy a house? Right? If you've seen this movie, it's called Up. And the little boy walks up and he's trying to sell cookies to the old man. And literally, the old man just slams the door in his face multiple times, right? Because he's reading off a script. And that's what's going to happen every time if we read off a script. But if we have scripted responses, to the things that they say, that's a totally different story.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's probably one of my favorite things to train on is dialogues, and I have a bunch of little simple dialogues. I'm going to share one with you guys right now. This is the one. And again, I give credit where credit's due, this came from some of the stuff I've learned from Brian Buffini and the guys that are out there with him. And Joe Nego is the kind of the founder of this one, but it's called the Mayor's Campaign. Okay. So as we're out there and we're talking to people and we're learning stuff about people, and you run into somebody, it was interesting, Joe, they called Joe the mayor of Chicago because he went around and he constantly was using this simple dialogue with them. Now, is it a script? Yes. But he made it so in tune to what he said every time he talked to somebody that it just came out as conversation is what you're trying to do. So this dialogue's real simple. If I meet somebody new and I say, oh, by the way, if you're looking to buy or sell a home, or you had a friend or family member who is looking to buy or sell a home, do you have a realtor you'd refer them to? And so now, after a piece of a conversation, I've taken them into a place where they go, hadn't really thought about that, And that's what I'm looking for is that, okay, if you hadn't thought about it, then how do I become that guy that you're going to refer them to, Or if they say, oh, my sister's a realtor, then I go, oh, great. Then I know that's not somebody I'm going to put into much time or effort into. I'm going to keep them around, but I'm not going to put time or effort into them. So what I'm really trying to do at this point in time is find out, where do they sit in my sphere of influence, and are they somebody that I can work with? What is their priority, right? Yep. So that's one of the simple dialogues out there. If you'll learn that one, guys, and I'll say it again just for you, so it's so easy. It's oh, by the way, if you were looking to buy or sell a home, or you had a friend or family member who is looking to buy or sell a home, do you have a realtor you refer them to, right? And that's a simple conversation, And you can have that conversation with anybody. I've had that conversation with my parents. I mean, because if you don't have that conversation with them, they forget about it. Your friends and your family are not sitting around thinking about what you do every day.
Right? Well, and they make misconceptions of what you do every day, right? Hints in Midlothian. Well, is Midlothian Dallas? No. So when I look for somebody in Dallas, am I going to call Kent or am I going to call somebody else, right? Me as a real estate agent, I understand the concept of real estate, but the average layman does not. And they don't understand that Kent can take care of that business in Dallas. And therefore they would call somebody else. And this is notorious. This has happened to myself with my own sister. Well, I didn't think you could help me in this town. You're right. Maybe I couldn't help you in that town, but I could have offered a referral in that town. And we forget this conversation. And Nick he has a notorious story where he talks about going to a wedding and he's at a hotel and he gives a call to one of his best friends from high school and he says, hey, I want to meet up. Let's meet up. And she's like, no, I can't. I just bought a house. And he's like, what? You just bought a house? And she's like, yeah, I just bought a house. And he's like, well, you didn't call me to give a referral. And she's like, yeah, well, that's interesting. What hotel are you staying at again? Because she manages a hotel. And the thing was, which was comical, is that she managed the hotel he was staying at.
Yeah.
But he didn't call her for a discount. And that's the thing is that we oftentimes forget to mention the full scope of what we have an opportunity for. So going back to the general conversation is that in a conversation, make sure that you use, as Kent mentioned, those dialogues that register facts throughout the transaction, right?
Absolutely.
Person loves to buy. You know how often we find that a buyer's agent forgets to ask the very simple question of, what are you doing with the home you live in today?
Right.
Yeah. And then you find two agents in a transaction, one selling it, one helping them on the buy side. This is the opportunity to double side in the perfect way because you're not misrepresenting the transaction at all.
No.
Right? There's no ability to mess it up because you're representing the seller, but who also is going to be a buyer, right? It's the
which is normal. I mean, that's normal. That's what everybody does. When they sell their house, they're moving somewhere else.
Yeah, should do.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it makes all the sense in the world, So as you're thinking through these things, guys, there's hundreds of places you can go out there and find these dialogues to work with and things that you need to do. But again, here's one of the biggest issues that we have as realtors And as professionals in anything, is that we spend way too much time trying to play and not enough time trying to practice, right? You have to practice more than you play. Every professional athlete does it. Every professional musician does it.
Every goat talks.
Right.
They practiced, right?
Right.
I use Michael Jordan's example many a time.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan practiced every day.
Yeah.
And not only when he would go to a game, he would know the playthrough of the little games that they play on the Megatron because he was there so early that
Yeah.
he watched the run through, right?
Right.
No other players were there, and he would bet his own players because he knew what happened because they weren't there.
Right.
Why is he the GOAT? In my opinion, he is the GOAT. Some people have
Absolutely.
the conception, but but why? Because he practiced, right? Everybody practices.
If you want to be the best at anything you do, you have to be prepared to do that part of it, right? So making the phone call here, one of the biggest things that really surprises me about people and phone calls is that people are scared to make a phone call. They have a fear of it. All right. So here's what I would say to you: if you have a database and you've gone through and you've sorted that database, all right. So I've sorted it into. I use these terms because it's just the ones I learned through working through Brian Buffini and other things. But they're A pluses, then they're A's, then they're B's, then they're C's. All right. So A pluses are like, that's a tough group to get in. Those are the people I know and love that go on vacation with me, that come to Christmas dinner at my house. Right. That group's pretty small. If I cannot call that group, there's a problem. They're not really A pluses, right?
Yeah.
If I can't pick up the phone and go, "Hi, Mom," don't forget.
If you can't ask them to pick you up when you have a flat tire, they're not A.
Yeah, exactly. Amen, brother. Right. So once we learn that piece of it and we prioritize that should be the simplest call you ever make. And that should be a call you're making all the time. You shouldn't worry about that call, and you should be able to say, "Hey, Mom, don't forget, if you hear anybody, looking to buy or sell real estate, that's how I raise your grandkids." Don't be scared to remind them of that. It's not a problem, right? Then you look at your A's, it's kind of the same thing. If they're on your list of an A, you need to be able to pick that phone up and not have any fear of talking to them, right? Now, I'll agree when you get to the lower side of your B's or your C's that C's are people that I consider acquaintances, and at that point in time, you have to have done the practice so that your dialogue's sharp, so that when you talk to them, that it doesn't feel like a sales pitch, right? You never want it to feel like a sales pitch. You always want it to feel like a relationship building process, right? So as I'm going through that, I need to be able to do that. So Brian's a guy that I've met and I just barely know him. His kid plays soccer on the same team my kid plays soccer on, and so the odds are I'm not going to jump in and go, "Hey, anybody looking to buy or sell real estate?" That's probably not going to be the conversation. The conversation is going to be, "Hey, how long you been here? What do you do? What does your family do for fun? Is it, I see you at the soccer field. Is your kid into this? Or are you just doing it for what? And just learning about them, right? Because I'm going through three processes, and that process is, can I trust you? You good at your job? You care about me? So it may take me, the entire soccer season to create that trust. But once I've created it, then I can say, "Hey, oh, by the way, I listen to sell real estate. Let me put you into my system so that you can kind of have some information about what's going on in our market. You own real estate here, you should know, right?" And so now that's an easier dialogue. I still haven't asked him one time to send me somebody, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just going to create that friendship, and I'm going to keep pulling him in and make him go, "Man, this guy knows this market. He knows what's going on here," right? Mm-hmm. What's your opinion of that?
Well, so I think that goes really deep in the respect that, think about it this way. It's notorious, right? Somebody gets arrested or they commit a crime, and you look at them and you're like, "Man, I really thought that guy was a good guy." Like, it's notorious. You hear that across the board because they have built up a perception. And this is what we're doing now, obviously using a crime story to organize this thought. But the concept is this: if Kent did something that was contradictory to the conversations that we've had over this time, I would say that same thing. I'd say, well, Kent's a great guy. Like, or if somebody accused Kent of something, then I would say, no, that's not who I know Kent to be.
Right.
That's the kind of trust that you want to create with these individuals. You want to create the trust that says, hey, they're a good person. Let me give you a for instance. My daughter does play soccer, and she was on a AYSO volunteer league soccer team. Right, the coach happened to be the same coach that she had for 2 or 3 years. This coach is a local FBI agent. Me and him, we talk like, hey, how is life? How's things? Nothing more than that. I never said, hey, I have a presence in market, so he understood and he found out that I was in real estate. But minus that, it wasn't ever a communication line. Fast forward 3 years, we've now our daughters are on the same soccer team still, but now in a different environment. They swim against each other in a competitive nature, so we see each other on a periodic, regular basis. So now we've created what would be classified as more than just an acquaintance base, but now it's more of a friendship base. And to the extent that the FBI is having a citizen academy, that he invited me. He gets one invite for the year, and he invited me. Now, why is that? What stood up above that? It's 3 years of build. Now, he and I have never sold a piece of real estate together, right? But do I trust that if he ever does do that he would call me? And at this moment, I do, right? And that's the kind of concept that we need to build and create, is that it's not going to be an overnight conversation. It's not. It's kind of those leads. I think that the come and list me lead is not as fun as the one that I work for a year to get. Personally, that might be my weird quirk that I have, but I think that if you work that lead, it becomes such a more beneficial in the long run lead. So,
absolutely. And it's going to be somebody that generates more than one. And the other thing I think that real estate agents are really, really terrible about is when we're in the deal, we don't really explain to the people we're in the deal is how we make a living, right? I can remember when I first got started, and I'd take, some of these young buyers out to look at houses, and, they kind of just assumed I was getting paid by the hour to drive them around, show them a house, and so I figured out really early on that it was very important. To say, hey, look, here's how I get paid. Now, the reason I can spend the time and the effort with you is because I work by referral. And so, if I was out there chasing every lead that came down the internet, I wouldn't have the time to do this. But because I work with people like you and people that I know and like, and you tell your friends how good I do, then I can spend more time and effort with you. All right. So now, so that's another dialogue, right? That's another thing but I have to do it with intention, right? I have to understand the process as I'm sitting there with them. I can't just assume that they know how this works. I have to go through the process. It's the same thing when you're doing a needs determination to decide what house they want to purchase and what they really want for a house. It all has to be done with intention. And that's the thing is you guys, you got so much, we're in such a crazy market. We were talking about this the other day, is that, there's a ton of you that don't understand the ups and downs of this market. When I first started selling real estate, I'll never forget, I'd go list a house, and part of my dialogue was this. I'd say, Brian, buddy, we're going to get this thing up on the market. We're going to get it going. Now, in today's market, well, we should probably get this thing set up for about 18 months. And they're like, and then that was real, because it might take 18 months to sell a house, And if I said that to somebody today, they'd run me out of the door.
And if you tell them 18 days, they'll run you out the door.
Yeah. They're thinking 18 hours, And so now you got to tweak those dialogues to make sense. But guess what? It's the same dialogue I've always used. I just tweak it to fit the situation that I'm in. So when I have the conversation, it rolls off my tongue and sounds like, I just want them to believe that I'm the expert. And the only way I can get them to believe that I'm the expert is if I have practiced what it is I need to say to you.
Well, and I want to leave it with just one of the best scenarios of this that was not even intended to happen. So I used to live, when I first got into real estate, I lived on one part of town, and I had a local grocery store that was just down the block from me. And I would go to the grocery store. It was so close to me that I would go almost every other day to grab food. Like I would grab food as I needed it.
Right.
Didn't have kids at the moment, so it was a little easier to accomplish that. But nonetheless, I went to the store almost every other day, and I'd go back and I'd pick up meat for hamburgers or steaks, and they had a meat department. And the same meat guy was there. Our schedules just aligned, and I would just talk to the meat guy. He was the meat guy.
Right.
I don't even know that I probably knew his name for the first 4 years, right? We would just talk. Like, how's life? How's things? What's everything? Cool. I'd walk up. We created this rapport that he would even kind of ignore some people whenever I'd walk up, right? Like it was that kind of a beneficial. Flash forward 4 years, I move away. I'm not even going to the same grocery store anymore. And I get this call, and they're talking to me, and it sounds like this person just knows me, like they're offering details and all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, great. I must have had like a really great connection with this person, right? So I had remembered from the previous point that not only did he did the meat stuff in the evenings, but he also had another job in the daytime.
Oh.
So he was doing it as a secondary. So I come out to this house, and like I said, I walk into this house, and it's a $200,000 or $300,000 house. At that time, that was a big house. Like that's a nice size home. And I get up to the door, and I open the door, and he's like, and he opens the door. And I'm like, "You're my meat guy." Like it's just. I had connected with him at such a different level because of time,
right,
that I didn't even resonate the fact that he could be a potential. That taught me that day that never discount any relationship,
ever.
Any relationship that you create, because you never know where people end up. You never know who people are, and you never know how many people. And it turns out over the years, people had told me about a person that was giving me referrals, and I kept asking them like who they are. Turns out he had given me, to that point, this is probably sixth year in my business, he had given me probably 10 referrals. And he's since then probably given me 10 or 15 more referrals since then. And it was a relationship that we just communicated. Like that's all it was. We talked about the weather. We talked about the our this and that. He was there. It was a weird concept to kind of realize that you never know when that relationship is bound, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, and I think if we all go back and look at that, we've all had those little strange ones. I had one guy that he would never answer a phone call, so I set him up where I do a text every other month to him. And this guy referred me probably 8 or 10 deals over a short period of time, but he just didn't like talking on the phone. He liked me, and he liked everything I did for him, and he'd refer people to me. He just wasn't interested in having a phone conversation, but, the bottom line is because I picked the way he liked to communicate, right, then the referral still happened. So, so that's the other thing you got to do is you got to kind of figure out who your people are and how do they like to chat, because, some of them just, want to see you on Facebook, some of them just want to see you and, through a text, and then you also got to get that guy. I got one of my dear friends, but good client, but I know this, he sells pharmaceuticals, and he does it for hospitals throughout Dallas-Fort Worth, and Dallas-Fort Worth's a big place. And if he's in Dallas and going to Fort Worth, that's about an hour and 15-minute drive. And if I call him, guess how long I'm going to be on the phone? Hour and 15 minutes. So you got to know this. If I'm going to make that call, I got to know I got an hour and 15 minutes to have that conversation, right?
Very true.
Yeah, and so it's guys. It's learning your business. It's learning how to do this. It's okay. It's okay for me to have an hour and 15-minute conversation with him because over the years, this guy's probably sent me 25 referrals. Out of those 25 referrals, we've closed 15 of them. I mean, that's a good life for most people, you know.
Very true.
You know,
Very true.
and, you know, you put 10 of those guys together, and you know, as a real estate agent, you're living the dream. You know, and so
And you're doing it at a very high profit margin.
absolutely, yeah, you're not spending a bunch of money on stuff that you don't have to, right? You know, and you know, the referral based business, the way you get good at it is practice. You know, and I'm going to reemphasize that as we kind of wrap this thing up today, is that, you know, you got to learn dialogues. You got to understand the conversations. You got to understand your market and know where it is. You need, when you sit, you know, actually I was having a conversation with my daughter the other day, and we were talking about, and I've told them this for years and years and years, that your competition is not doing what it takes to be successful. You know, they're showing up with one-page CMAs and business cards because the market's so simple, they don't have to do anything, right?
Yeah.
But what we're going to do is we're going to show up with our 230-page 3-ring binder, color printed, you know, not because we want to win the deal we're at. It's because of the 5 other deals that guy's going to give us, because we came in so prepared, and so much more prepared than anybody else that walked in the door, right?
And it's easy to create bad habits in good markets.
Absolutely. And, you know, Brian can tell you, I can tell you that, you know, we have something really great going on right now, right? 5 years from now, we're going to look up and go, okay, who learned how to actually list and sell real estate during this time, and who didn't? And it's going to be easy to figure them out, right?
Yeah.
And so
if you've been in the business over 5 years, you can look around and you'll see who is no longer in the business. And
right.
that's even if they were selling real estate, they just may not be in the business anymore. It changes. It's an ever-changing market. People
Absolutely.
move, people die, people get married, people have kids.
That's
Things
it.
happen. Life happens. It will
Every day.
happen.
You know, so take the time, guys, learn to practice, make this something that is your profession. You know, that's one of the things I used to tell them, is that, you know, quit putting real estate professional on their badge until they prove they're a professional, right? You know, a professional is the one that's prepared when they walk in the door. A real estate agent is just somebody that shows up with a 1-page CMA and a business card and hopes that you'll give them the deal because they don't know any better. Right.
Very true.
And so don't be that guy, you know. So, hey, it's been great chatting with you guys today. I'm looking forward to it. You know, Brian, thank you for spending the time with us today. You know, this stuff is so valuable. You know, hopefully you guys are sucking it in and making it happen. Don't forget that, you know, we're doing a bunch of different trainings out there you're welcome to be a part of. If you have never done 100 Days to Greatness by Brian Buffini, I'm starting that class over Zoom, and you can show up to that. So just send the email to kent@kentbush.com, and we'll get you all the information on it. It changed my life as a real estate agent, and hopefully if you make that decision, it will change yours also. We're starting that on the 7th of February. So right around the corner.
Cool. Excellent. I appreciate it, sir. Have a great day, guys.
All
See you later.
right, guys. See you soon.